Welcome back to the program, Tennessee Congressman Tim Burchett. Tim, welcome to the program. I never know how to approach these things. Look, I don't want us to go to war, but I also know terrorists have to be dealt with. You can't negotiate with terrorists. And what they did to Israel was just like what happened to us on 9/11, a sneak attack. They didn't lose almost 3,000 like we did. They lost 1,200, and they're still losing more because there's over 200 hostages. So I get something needs to be done, and we as America should stand up for one of our strongest allies in the region. But I fear that this Joe Biden, because I don't call him the president, Tim, if you haven't noticed, that Joe Biden could lead us into a world war that we're just not ready for. What are your thoughts?
Well, I couldn't agree with you more. Actually, I don't think Israel wants us over there, and they don't want our boots on the ground because our rules of engagement got so many people killed at the end of Afghanistan. We left billions of dollars on the ground and let Americans get killed. You know, we had when a Marine Corps sniper who I asked the questions and in our committee, I said, "Did you have the guy, the bomber, the suicide bomber in your sights?" He said, "Yeah, twice." And the State Department or the war pimps at the Pentagon or whoever let this guy live, and then that cost a lot of people their lives and a bunch of Americans. One was my constituent, a kid named Ryan Canals, was the staff sergeant. Mm-hmm. And Israel does not want us, I don't think, with our rules of engagement. I agree with you. It's their war. Let them handle it. They're getting ready to show the world how wars are fought. And, you know, my dad was in the Pacific in the Marine Corps, 1st Marine Division. He was on Peleliu and Okinawa. And he told me before he died, he said, "No, buddy," he said, "if we'd have had these rules of engagement and embedded reporters like they do now, we'd still be in the Pacific over there fighting." And that, you know, you can't get past that. And we give Israel $3.8 billion a year on an auto check or auto pay, whatever you want to call it. And the Speaker of the House, you're getting to see what real leadership looks like. He is going to try to divide that thing, and it should be. You know, the president's pushed this thing out as an Israel aid package. The reality, and I want to just correct you on one thing, it is Ukraine, but there is no border security. It's paying for bureaucrats that are going to allow more illegals. Yeah, I mean, sometimes y'all aren't privileged to the same stuff we are.
Yeah, thanks for clarifying, Tim. We appreciate that.
It's going to put more lawyers, more people, and so it further confound the system by allowing illegals into our nation. And what Netanyahu said was correct. It was correct that he said, you know, what we're going to, it'd been like after World War II, when the Japanese bombed Pearl Harbor, we had asked them for a ceasefire. You know, hell no, we wouldn't have. We wouldn't have after 9/11. Look, these people are murdering thug maniacs, and we better let Israel handle it. They know how to handle it. It's their war. Again, we'll provide them with diplomatic help and some armament and a little money, and let them go fight this war because they know how to fight it.
Totally agree. You were talking about the border. I want to transition to that because I think that's the war that America needs to be fighting right now, because we are going to have, and I don't think it's a question of if we're going to have, it's when it's going to happen. You can't allow 8.5 million people in, and that's the weak numbers according to, I'll call them Biden light numbers, right? 8.5 million have been allowed in. I'm going to call it that. By the time he's done, it's going to be 12 to 15 million, Tim. I think you understand that and you recognize the numbers. We will have enough terrorists in this country to commit another 9/11 attack. It only took how many that day on September 11th? And they were here for a couple of years training up as pilots. They'll try something new and different. Maybe they'll get paragliders and hang gliders that radar doesn't pick up like they did in Israel. So that's the war we should be fighting. What are House Republicans, now that we have a speaker, doing right away this week to try, and I know it's hard, how are we trying to shore up the border with Biden's open border policy?
Well, we're trying to dislodge this crappy package that Biden's brought through, or trying to bring through. And by doing that, it will focus on exactly what's in that bill. It won't be lost on Ukraine or Israeli fighting or Taiwan, the crumbs that they'll be getting. So I think that's the first thing we're going to do. The second is we're going to push for tighter border security. We passed a bill, actually, that's over at the Senate that has not been approved yet. And who knows when it will, if it will ever even be brought up. I doubt they'll even bring it up because the Democrats got to admit they got a problem at the border. That's the first thing. Notice that the challenger out of Congress, the Democrat challenger, he brought up the border. I mean, he just said, "Look, if you're not paying attention to that, you're an idiot." And Biden's calling attention to it, knowing that his polling numbers are drifting off into the, I guess, close to single digits. I'm not sure, but he knows he's got to address it, and that's why this bogus proposal was put forward. And we don't need that. What we need is a real border security, and that's building the wall. It's putting people down on the border to stop it and enforcing. And when I was down there, they just said, "Look, man, look, Tim, if we could just enforce the laws on the books, we would do it." But they got their own rules of engagement, and it's just the morale is just
well,
terrible.
Tim, and it also, this has to include, okay, in your plan moving forward, right? Finish the wall, strengthen security, start stopping them at the border. No more catch and release bull. I'm tired of it. But the biggest one, Tim, has to be extraditing the millions that were allowed in. I'm sorry, are we just going to let millions of illegal aliens who broke our federal immigration law, who many have connections with terrorist groups, are we going to allow them to live here then? Or are we going to make the mission of, sorry, you came illegally, you're getting shipped back home or to some other country while you await the process legally? I know it's going to cost, but guess what? It'll cost less to buy some plane tickets to send a few million home than to take care of millions for years, which is what they've already been doing the last 2.5 years under Biden, is sucking off of our tax dollar.
Absolutely. Here's what I'm afraid will happen in the future. You think this is crazy? It would be cheaper if it worked this way. I would never propose this, but if they make $5,000 a year, they'll start their own countries. And, and you got to imagine just the cost on social services alone, just the process over the border is that. I don't know what the end result is, but I'll tell you, we've got to address it, and the American public is demanding that.
Yes, we are. I think that is our biggest concern to date, is the border. If we don't secure that, well, one, we've got a crumbling economy. All those millions sucking off of it, like we just talked about, only hurts our economy because they're spending our tax money. There's one. Two, we could have another 9/11 style attack, which we know exactly what would do to our economy like the original. So all of the things that we're dealing with right now, I think, hinge around that border. We got to get it locked down, and we've got to extradite those folks. Tim, I'm almost out of time. You get the final word. We
better start watching our public colleges and campuses. That's where a lot of the breeding ground is. That's tax dollars. When you write a check to your old alma mater, you better put a ring on every dadgum penny of it, because that's where it's happening. That's where the Marxists are being bred today. And that's where the ill content for this great country is being.
Anti-American, anti-Semitic, and Marxism BS is being spewed by these so-called professors, these educators of higher education, my ass. Tim Burchett, as always, we appreciate you so much. Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
Yep.
Keep putting the truth out there, brother. Thank you.
We do. 5 days a week.